In 2020, Toni Schuppe just wanted to get people informed about their civic responsibilities in the election. She had no idea she would meet the President of the United States. We'll get the full scoop from Schuppe from her in this edition of God's News in the News. Well, thank you for joining us once again for another edition of God's News, the News, current events, biblical perspective. And before we get into all the interview that we're going to have today, there's not going to be a lesson. We're going to have a special speaker. I think you're really going to like what she has to say. Before we get into that, there's three things you need to do: like, share, and subscribe. You're probably going to get tired of all that. When I have my graphics department get me that snazzy little thing that goes down there at the bottom and tells you to do that, then I won't be saying all this all the time. But that graphics department, oh, wait, that's me, hasn't gotten into gear yet. In any event, a phrase I like to stop saying, we got a special guest today. And like I said in the brief intro, in 2020, she was just doing her best and through Patriot Academy to get people to understand about the country and their civic responsibilities, their biblical citizenship. And she had no clue how far that would take her. Of course, the 2020 election went a little bit wonky for those of us that were supporters of President Trump. But I'll let her tell her story. So without further ado, let's bring in our special guest today, Toni Schuppe. That's there. That's now they got it. Okay, there she is. Hi, Toni. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you here. So, before we get into too much of this, I always like to find out a little bit more about the people that I'm interviewing here. Just briefly, how'd you get into Christianity in general? How'd you find Christ? I mean, I'm assuming you're a Christian. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
No, yes, I'm definitely a Christian. I was raised in a Roman Catholic home. Great upbringing, great parents. They did the best they could to put in conservative values into me. Growing up, we were not a politically involved household. In fact, my dad didn't vote. My mother started voting once she started attending a Bible study, and understanding the pastor there started to explain to her why it was important that they vote. But I went to college, and just like a lot of kids, got swept up in the party scene. Never really had a relationship with Christ. I didn't know what it meant to be saved. I never heard that terminology, and I'm not putting the Catholic Church down. Please don't take it that way. This is just my story. And when I graduated college, I was definitely slightly left leaning in a lot of the social aspect of my views. And that was just a result of really who I was around in college. And a year out of school, I have an engineering degree. I was working in the nuclear industry as a mechanical engineer, and I was miserable in my career and I didn't know what to do. So it's amazing how God moves when you don't even fully know him yet. Because a year out of school, I met a guy at a tailgating party, because that's what I was doing with my spare time. Um, ultimately I got connected and heard the gospel. He got me connected with a group of young, successful entrepreneurs that were doing things differently than the corporate arena to make extra income on the side and build passive income assets. And that was fascinating to me. So I got involved with them, and that's how I heard the gospel in the summer of 2003. My husband and I, for the first time together in a huge coliseum of people, heard a testimony. And at the end of the testimony, the gentleman said, if you've never accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, come on down. And the two of us got saved together on that morning. My husband was what would be considered today an agnostic. He was raised in a Methodist church, and that's his whole story. I won't tell either, but I was a confused Catholic. He was an agnostic, and in one day it was a complete transformation. And that was in my early
Right.
20s. And that is what got me back in terms of like political views, to the conservative side of things. Once I started reading the Bible and following Christ on a daily basis, then I came back to the right side of things.
Assuming you started voting too.
And I did. I voted
Okay.
in presidential elections. I was clueless. Elections were the most important ones. So
Yeah, your signal's a little bit choppy here. Let's see if it comes back in here. I think it will.
oh, shoot. I'll check my internet connection too. Hang on.
Okay. Well, it's coming in now, so it's good there now. But
Okay.
You're good. Keep on going there. All right. So, and now that was in 2003. Now, fast forward to 2020 here because I'm sure there was some ups and downs and things going on there. But what happened in 2020? What changes happened there?
In 2020, in March of 2020, when the governor shut the schools down, that was my wake up call.
This is during COVID, right?
Yes, it was the middle of March. I will never forget it. I have 3 daughters. Today, they're 12, 8, and 5. Then I guess that was 2020. What were they? 9, 6, and 3-ish?
I don't do math in public, so you go right ahead.
My oldest was in 3rd grade. I had them in a private Christian school. I picked her up at school, and her backpack was full of books, and she says, "We're bringing everything home because we might not be coming back." And I was
Wow.
like, "What are you talking about?" Um, so I came home, started finding out what the heck was going on. I remember saying to my husband, he said the governor is shutting the schools down. I went, "The governor? Who the heck's the governor? Like, what's his job?" That's how politically naive I was. Can he do that? Is that legal? Like, can he seriously do that? That was my wake up call, though, because a little alarm went off on the inside of me that day that said something's not right. What the heck is going on here?
Yeah. That was a lot of us in March of 2020. I remember what I was doing. I came to pick up my wife. We I work I She works at church that we go to, and I came there to pick her up 4:30, and I walked to the door, and the person in charge of the media, because I was working with cameras and things there. So he said, "I love chaos," which was kind of an odd lead. And then I got inside, and then at that time we had everything scheduled for our cameras and everything. We went live streaming that Sunday, so we had a meeting together on Saturday, and we live streamed for 11 weeks, and it was like crazy. And at the same time, though, I was leaving my job at work, and they said, "Well, take your laptops home with you," because I had a laptop. And I said, "I probably should take all my stuff with me." And they said, "No, you don't need to." I said, "I'm taking it with me anyway." And I worked from home for the next 3 years. So it's like it changed for all of us.
Yep. But that was my wake up call that there's something
Hmm.
more to this, and that's what got
Yeah.
me interested just in government. Like, can they do this? Can they tell the businesses that you can't operate? Can they force mask us? So I just started studying and reading. I read a ton of books, and I just started really digging in and studying history and what the heck was going on. And then in the fall of 2020, I took a constitution class from Patriot Academy. It was their 6-week Constitutional Live series. It was the national class. It was maybe one of the first national classes they had. I think at that time, their coach program only had maybe 1,000 coaches that were offering these classes, but there were 11,000 people taking that national class.
How'd you
And
find out about that?
I was at a entrepreneur workshop weekend, what I call their quarterly business events that I still attend. And Rick Green was a guest. Rick Green and David Barton gave like a little commercial. They were guest speakers, and it was the day I'll never forget this either. It was the day that Ruth, is it Bader Ginsburg? It's
Yeah.
the day that they announced she passed away. So, like, of course, the news cycle is going bonkers, and everyone's wondering what the heck's going on. And Rick Green gets up there and says, 70% of Americans can't even name the 3 branches of government, and 80% don't know more than one of the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. And I fell in both of those categories. As much studying as I had done over the previous few months, I fell in both those categories. I thought I am wildly uneducated. So when I looked at the website and saw the classes, my friend who's now my business partner with Audit the Vote, which we'll get into, Karen Taylor, her and I were sitting there together, and we're like, well, we both had an interest. We'll do this. Let's take the class together. So we signed up and took Constitutional Live, and I mean, from week 1, I was blown away. I was like, man, this is the fix. This is why America is in the situation it's in, because people don't know this stuff. And if we can get enough people educated on just basic civics, maybe we can make a difference. And
Okay.
that's
So
where it
yeah.
started.
So that's where you started. But as we know, the 2020 election didn't quite go the way we thought.
Not quite.
That's an understatement. So, so how did that morph into? Well, I'll let you tell the story. Obviously, things in Pennsylvania. That's where you're at. I forget if we didn't tell you that you're from Pennsylvania there. So, things didn't go locally there, in the state of Pennsylvania. But everybody was. I seem to remember on election night, everybody was watching Pennsylvania. So, tell us what happened that night for you guys, and then what you did after that.
Yeah. So on November 3rd, during the 2020 election, Karen and I were in the middle of hosting our first Constitution class. So we're still very new. Actually, that's not true. Maybe we started sometime that month in November hosting our class. But the 2020 election, I was just observing and watching. We went to bed November 3rd. President Trump was up by about 700,000 votes. And when we woke up, and I didn't even go to bed that night till like 4 in the morning, and he was still way up. And I got up the next morning to a flurry of text messages of people panicking because the gap had like been cut in half. Somewhere in the middle of the night, they found hundreds of thousands of votes, updated the system, and there we were. And then every day throughout the week, they just kept finding more ballots. It's these mail-in ballots. They kept finding ballots. And by Friday of that week, when Delaware County reported their results from that specific area, President Trump was still leading by 7,000 votes. And when Delaware County called in their numbers on Friday, it took Joe Biden to supposedly 81,000 votes in Pennsylvania. And we were stunned. I was shocked. And even after that, I thought it was so obvious that something had gone wrong in Pennsylvania. I thought the courts, naively, I had no idea how bad our court system has changed and been infiltrated and are biased. And I thought the stuff's going to come out through the courts. There's absolutely no way that they're going to actually inaugurate Joe Biden. But then there we were, January 20th. We've got what, in my view, at the time was an illegitimate president. And I had learned just enough in that Constitution class to be, I jokingly say this, mildly dangerous, and thought we have got to do something. We can't just sit here. We need answers. There's got to be more to this. So me and Karen, and we had connected with a third young mom at the time that was in the same boat as us, very politically new to the political arena, but like-minded. And we put a petition together. It was actually just a letter that I wrote. I chronicled everything that we saw, facts and figures, from November 3rd down to January 20th with sources, and said, let's see if we can get some signatures. Let's just put this out there and see if other people feel like we do. We have questions. We want some answers. In Pennsylvania, the day they certified the November election, they had over 700,000 more ballots cast than voters on record who participated in the election on election day. Still to date, there's over 100,000 ballots that we have no idea where they came from. 100,000 more ballots than voters on record who either showed up at the polls or cast a mail-in ballot. And we've got no answers as to why that is. So how anybody in the mainstream media can say that Pennsylvania without doubt went to Joe Biden, they're just fooling themselves. Like the State Department can't even refute that stuff.
And
So
that's ongoing. You're still fighting that fight, aren't you?
we are still fighting for election integrity. We want truth and transparency because people don't trust elections. And a lot of people now are just throwing their hands up saying, well, we're never going to vote again because we know they're rigged. And we're trying to get people involved on the ground at the most local level to help fix that. And it's going to be a long-term battle for sure. But
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say we started our petition in February of 2021. And within 6 months, we had 120,000 signatures on our petition. And that started the at least Pennsylvania and what ended up being a nationwide movement for election integrity. We were starting to get media attention, of course, negative from the mainstream media, but positive from the alternate media sources. And life has never been the same.
Well, now, you said now you started all this stuff, and you were just trying to get Pennsylvania straightened out, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, and so, um, and you were getting a little bit of press. I mean, did you get any national press, or I mean, were you interviewed or something?
Oh yeah. I was
Okay,
getting
yeah.
I got trashed by the New York Times, by NPR, Politico, you name it. All the big Wall Street Journal, all the big ones came after and attacked us and tried to discredit everything we were doing. I got a lot
Yeah.
of negative. Yeah, I and Audit the Vote. We ended up becoming a nonprofit then later that summer because people wanted to do billboards. We wanted to expose what had happened, and so we formed a nonprofit and raised money, and we put a billboard in 13 cities across Pennsylvania that ran in November of 2021. It was just said, "Expose the fraud, get the
Yeah.
facts, and fix 2020." It was incredible.
So been there, got the T-shirt, right? You have the media badge of dishonor, I guess they
Oh,
say.
totally. The Philadelphia Inquirer, and I mean, it goes on. Like, I don't know how much you want to get into. I could talk more. Like, it got ugly. The media
Well,
hits were rough.
we got an hour here. We can go into details. I want to get the good stuff later on. I guess we got pictures for that, but Yeah, I mean, that to me, it's like you but now you were dedicated. You were wanting to get this thing done, regardless. And yet the all the stuff that happened after that, how did your family take it? How did your husband take it? I mean, your friends, did it affect your people you went to church with? I mean, when you got involved in media?
Um, yes, my family's incredibly supportive. My husband is a total patriot. He's the total opposite of me. He's more introverted. So, he was thankful that to be able to help and take care of the house and the kids so that I could go out honestly and do it. The media hits didn't bother him at all. Um, and my friends and family too, I had already I had already lost some friends and family connections prior to the 2020 election just because I started getting very outspoken on social media about my views on COVID and on the school system. And so anybody that wasn't like minded that had already kind of unfriended me or gone the other direction. So the media hits didn't necessarily affect my close relationships though, but it did give me a little bit of PTSD when I was out in public, want to say my first and last name because you just don't know where people are at and what they're going to think. And I did start getting death threats and just all kind of crazy stuff. So it definitely
Wow.
changed our life.
You think? It's, so many people. I mean, I've interviewed a couple people here. Of course, your friend Scarlett, and her family's on board and like that. And then there was somebody else I interviewed on a different spectrum, and she's got three children, two of which are very supportive, one of which is not. But I called COVID the great divider. It's like it really did put a wedge in people's lives, and you were either one side or the other. And but now you were working at this time, right? You were still working a 9 to 5 job, or
No. So I left the corporate world when I was 28 because I had started a network marketing business in my early 20s. And I was able to get it to a point that I had kind of at least matched what I was making corporately. So
got it?
I had
Yeah,
left, and then as soon as I started having babies in my early 30s, I just stayed at home. I was running a couple businesses, a dog sitting business, some side businesses out of my house just to help my husband with the family finances, but I was basically a stay-at-home mom.
right. So this actually, if there is such a thing, came at a good time. Am I following that?
Yeah, I guess I could say that.
What's good? What's bad? We don't know. It's all subjective. Okay, so now you were really, more than ankle deep in the political realm now by this time. Um, and from what I'm hearing you say, you started some nonprofits. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those two? I think it's two nonprofits, right?
Just the one, the
Oh, just
nonprofit we started is called Audit the Vote PA. Oh, you're frozen for me.
the one. Okay.
There you are.
Okay. It's a little bit wonky.
Oh, no. Like, ah,
I'm coming back.
like,
Yeah. Like I said, I don't like to blame Satan for, tech things like that, but, this is pretty important. We're getting to the juicy stuff. Come on, we're getting to the good stuff here. So, all right. So, again, what I was getting to, you were in the political realm, but you were national exposure, but it was just Pennsylvania's cause. And then the nonprofit that you're still doing is
ah.
try again now. Audit the vote.
Yes.
Let's talk about that while we can. So,
Oh, oh, we can. Um, we only started the nonprofit because people wanted to do billboards. And in order to do a billboard in Pennsylvania, you have to have paid for by. And
right.
we had enough attention. A pro bono attorney was working with us at the time, and he offered to set it up for us. So we set it up. And that's really, I mean, I never in a million years thought I'd get into nonprofits. I didn't know anything about the
Sure.
nonprofit space, but we needed to do it to do the billboards. We also did a TV commercial. It was just a little 15-second bookend, front end and back end in November to try to get people to go to our website and take our canvassing survey. So everything that we petitioned for kind of fell apart in the summer of 2021. We had a senator in Pennsylvania, Senator Doug Mastriano, who was the gubernatorial nominee for governor in the midterm elections. He kind of emerged as our ally in the summertime and was pushing for an actual forensic audit of the 2020 election. Long story short, the swamp kind of got to him, and not him specifically, but moved him out of the position that he was in, changed the plan for the audit by the end of the summer of 2021. We knew we were not going to get exactly what we had petitioned for. I see the website up there. If you want to see our original petition, just click on the online petition. You can see the letter. It chronicles everything in Pennsylvania, all the facts and everything that had happened in 2020. So by the fall, we're like, well, we know we're not going to get this forensic audit, but we didn't start all of this and come this far for nothing. What are we going to do? We started a canvassing effort. We assembled teams. We started in 20 counties, but we finished up 12. We got 12 counties where we got a sizable amount of data. And when we knocked doors, we asked 3 basic questions. We said to the person there, we verified that they were living at the address in November of 2020. We asked, did you vote in the 2020 election? If so, how many people are registered to vote here at your address to the best of your knowledge? And how many of those registered actually voted in the election to the best of your knowledge? And as you're scrolling through these results, you can see the discrepancies are astronomical. This is just Berks County. 50% of the time, the answer at the door did not match the certified results according to what the State Department has up. And it's Allegheny County was the worst one. It was 78% of the time. I think Bucks County is 74, Washington County 72. I'm just spitting these out off the top of my head, but you can see all 12 counties that we did. Butler, 42% discrepancy rate. The cleanest county we found was Lancaster County. It's in the middle of the state, kind of a more rural area. The cleanest county was a 37% discrepancy rate. So 37% of the time, one of those 3 questions we would ask the resident didn't match the certified results, which pretty much proves in and of itself, we did not have a free and fair election. So when we,
Well, yeah, Tony, I think we all know we didn't have a free election no matter where you're at. But yeah, I mean, the website's great there. We got your URL there at the bottom too, if you want to check it out. Well, that's just for Pennsylvania though. Did
correct.
you see any other states kind of pattern the same thing you're doing?
I don't know all the specifics to spit out numbers, but absolutely, there's canvassing went on nationwide. I mean, even in places
Okay,
like
all right.
California, people are getting involved on the ground doing stuff like this.
And of course, you're aware of what Mike Lindell did and what Dinesh D'Souza has done. I'm sure you know all of those things. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. I've met them both on this journey, which is surreal in and of
yeah.
itself because I'm just a normal person.
Well, a normal person in unusual times, and yeah, and I think you and quite a few people you're like Queen Esther for such a time as this. But speaking about meeting people, let's get into that start part of your story here. You obviously you rub shoulders with some people here with obviously Doug Mastriano, but somebody else showed up in your life that you didn't expect. Let's get into that.
Okay, so it was the summer of 2021, early in June. Senator Mastriano took his staff to Arizona, Maricopa County to look at their forensic audit that they had done. He wanted to model
Right.
it in Pennsylvania, and he was getting a ton of pushback from his colleagues in Harrisburg. And so we had been meeting with him before, but he basically said, when you guys hit 100,000 signatures on this petition, I'm going to send it to President Trump. And my vision is kind of you guys will get a meeting with him. We'll get a picture of Trump with this petition. And when Trump puts that out to his entire network, his social media network, it'll put so much political pressure on the inside that they will be forced to let me do this. So that's in late June, we crossed over 120,000 signatures and the ball started rolling. The first time we were connected with President Trump was just a phone call, in and of itself, completely surreal. I was at the community pool with my kids. I knew a call was potentially coming, but I didn't know when. And of course it came, and my kids are swimming and they're little. And the youngest one, is potentially drowned. I remember on the phone telling my oldest daughter, make sure Hallie doesn't drown. This is President Trump. I got to take this call. Um, so that was surreal. He called to thank us for everything we were doing and invited us out to Bedminster, New Jersey. Come on out. Would love to meet you guys. And we did then. So late in August, it was August 18th of 2021. us and 15 of the others in our groups. Most of them were leading canvassing efforts. Our data expert came with us. We went out to Bedminster, New Jersey, thinking we were just going to have I don't know when you want to start throwing pictures up there. If you
Sure.
want to
Yeah,
put
we
the
can
map,
set it
there
there.
you go. Trump National Golf Club right there. We thought we were going into a business meeting. I had a clipboard with me. I had questions because we were getting so much pushback. I wanted to, he's obviously a brilliant business mind. I wanted to get his strategic thoughts on what we should do next. And so then we walked in. If you could show the dining room picture next, we ended up having almost like a reception for us, essentially. The people started coming in with hors d'oeuvres, taking drink orders, like, look at this beautiful room, the table is set. We're like, well, I thought I was getting 30 minutes, ask some questions, snap a picture with this petition, and we're done. We ended up there for a couple of hours and getting to have dinner with him. But when he walked in, I don't know if you can go to the picture of him with the petition. My husband had brought his Nikon camera. We have a nice Nikon camera. They had taken our cell phones at the door, all of us. They made us take our cell phones. So if my husband hadn't brought this camera, we would have none of these pictures. I'm so glad he did. We asked the president, they had almost like a photo booth backdrop that every single person got their individual picture with him. My husband was taking them. So my picture is with him. My husband's got one with him. But there we asked him, hey, can you take a picture of this petition? So he just walked right over off the table, grabbed it just like that. And the three of us girls that started the movement, I just stood next to him like, cheese. And so there it is, President Trump with our petition. And we ended up at dinner. We were crafting a press release with him. He was going to put out one of his press releases, just had dinner with Audit the Vote PA, fully support their efforts for a forensic audit backed by Senator Doug Mastriano, Pennsylvania, get it done. Well, that press release ended up never going out. And what we think happened, what we believe happened, is essentially the Harrisburg swamp got to the president and told him, no, Mastriano is not going to do the right thing. We're going to remove him from his position on the committee. We're going to put a different senator in, and we're going to do a real audit. And of course, I don't have to tell you the rest of the story. Here we are today. Mastriano was removed. They fired his staff. They did all kind of politically motivated things to hurt him. And then, of course, we never really did get answers to any of our questions after that. And we kind of knew that the petition effort, when that happened, was dead. But that's when we started, like I mentioned, the ground efforts of canvassing. But if you want to go through any of the other pictures, the ones of me and the president, or
Yeah, Tom, why don't you just start the very first one and then kind of scroll through them as we talk here? We'll get it. Just keep talking.
Okay. So we ended up, we went into, after we took that picture with the petition and the president, we went into you scroll through this one, because this is a whole nother story. We ended up going into the dining room and sitting and having dinner with him, and we got to ask him questions. He signed hats for us. That's the whole group of us, the picture up right now. We took that after he had gone back to whatever he was doing that night. He signed you can see us all with our MAGA hats. He signed our hats. He even drank. So the president drinks Diet Coke. I don't know if I should say, he might not want me saying that because Coke is woke. Maybe he's gone a different direction, but he had a glass bottle.
He's still doing Big Macs and Diet Coke.
He's still doing Big
guarantee.
Macs and Diet. Okay.
I assure you, he is.
There's my husband and the president. My husband has been a Trump fan from 2016. As soon as he heard he was running, he loved the idea that wasn't a politician. My husband's been following politics, wasn't like involved locally, but he was way more just knowledgeable about what was worldly things, like what the heck's going on. So he's been excited from the beginning about this. I was not a Trump supporter. I did not vote for him in the.
Let me. You didn't vote for Trump in the primaries, but he did, right?
Yes, but he did. I did not vote for President Trump in the primaries. Of course, in the 2016 presidential election, I did, because I knew enough just biblically, what side is what. I can't vote for her. I can't vote for killing babies, so I'll vote for him. But I wasn't excited about it. And my husband was so excited that he won that he put a screensaver on his computer at work of Trump and Melania and Air Force One and them kind of like walking down a red carpet. I mean, he was like beyond ecstatic. And I like to ask him today, if someone told you in 2016 that 5 years later your wife was going to get involved in politics and lead a political movement that would eventually result in you having dinner with the president, what would you think? And he's just like, I would have thought you were. No, you are smoking something. There's no way that that's going to happen. But there it is. There's us and the president. probably the coolest thing of the whole night is when we finished dinner, and there's a picture, if you can get to it. My husband stepped back when we were having dinner where we're talking, so you can see he's not yelling at me. It looks like he's yelling at me in that picture, but he's not. But that's how close I was to him. Like, how crazy. He sat at the head of the table. I was on one side, Karen was on the other, and I remember the whole time I was just looking at each other like, what is going on? Like,
On the
that's
on
the
the
president.
outside on the outside, you're like keeping your composure. You're cool as a cucumber,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. Do you remember what you were talking about here?
I was going through my list of questions of asking him, like, lawsuit wise, what do you think we could do to try to force their hand? I'd have to pull up my clipboard to remember all my questions at the time. The last thing I did ask him, I do remember, is saying, okay, so if you were us, what would you do next? And his answer was, never give up. Just keep doing what you're doing and never, never, never give up. That was the last thing that he said to us. I don't know if that's what he was saying right there. I can't remember exactly, but the coolest thing is I got to pray over him. So right before he left, he got up to leave for dinner. I said, "Can we pray over you?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I stood up with my right hand on his left shoulder and we said a prayer over him, and that is probably the biggest honor of my entire life. It's still surreal. I just look at these pictures like, did that really happen?
Now, is this the one in New Jersey? That's where you're at there? Is that New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. But you met him again, right?
So then I met him again. So because of all the work we did, yeah, that's just to show how close I was to him. I can't believe how close I was to him. He came to do a rally right before the primary election in must have been May of 2022, before the primary election for the gubernatorial race. And I got Karen and I both actually got VIP access, and so we got to go backstage with him and get another picture with him and meet him again, shake his hand. That's where I met Dinesh D'Souza, Mike Lindell. Who else was back there? I guess those were the two biggest names back there. But
Now
that's
this
the
is,
picture.
but
The
the picture
pictures of
before, if you can go back. No, keep going back there, Tom.
there you
There,
go.
there. That's the one. That's the one. The second one, right?
Yeah, so we got to meet him, a
Okay.
second time, and there's one of me shaking his hand. He acted like he remembered us. I don't know if he did, but he was very cordial, and he acted like he remembered us when we said we were. I'm Toni Schuppe from Audit the Vote. Oh, Audit the Vote. Okay. And the one of me shaking his hand, this is him asking us who we would vote for governor. That is me trying to tell him, why did you endorse Dr. Oz? The grassroots don't like Dr. Oz. Oh, no, I can't believe I did it. But I remember him saying, "Oh, you don't? No, we don't." He goes, "Okay, we'll talk." Like, no, we're not. I don't have your
We'll talk.
number.
We'll talk.
And of course, we didn't talk, but that was me shaking his hand, telling him that. And then when the one of just me and my husband, he was asking us who we would vote for governor. This was before the primaries, and we told him, of course, Doug Mastriano. And he endorsed him actually later that week. I'm sure it wasn't just us saying that's not why he endorsed him. In fact, I think Mastriano was going to win that primary regardless. And I think Trump kind of got in there to endorse him to increase his own numbers. But that's beside the point. He was asking us, who's you're voting for governor? Mastriano. So that's what's happening in that picture. And I look like a drowned rat because it had rained all day at that particular rally. But when you're got VIP tickets to meet with the president, you stand in the rain all day. So
And you made sure that your kids were fine, that nobody was drowning in the pool.
nobody's drowning. Kids are home with a sitter.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
crazy
crazy.
stuff. Well, what are the other pictures? I mean, I think we scrolled through all the pictures here. Was there another story between one of the pictures here that you
I
wanted to
don't
give us here?
I don't think so. I think that's everything.
I'm just
Not
going to
with the
scroll through them here, and then if a memory comes up, you told us about that. Now you got the hat signed, right?
Yep. We got all the hats signed. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. No, okay. Now there's the Trump National Golf Club where you met. There's your husband who was beaming. I'm
Yeah.
surprised the buttons on his shirt didn't pop off. Uh, and then of course you got the photo op. Now your husband was taking some of these pictures, wasn't he?
He was taking all of them, and then I took the last one with him and Trump.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one where you're at the table with the ghost hand. Not quite sure what happened there. I just noticed there's like he's got this phantom hand over here.
Yep.
And then of course that's the one with the petition. So that's the last of the pictures there.
That's what
So
120,000 signatures looks like on paper. There it is.
okay, there it is. Now, has anything happened with these petitions? I think you mentioned it earlier, but it's still an ongoing thing here.
There's the Senate is supposedly still investigating. They were stonewalled by the State Department when they started requesting records and things. They did not ask for anywhere near what should have been done in Pennsylvania, what we believe Doug Mastriano was willing to do and at least would have attempted. They shifted their focus and just started asking for all kind of records from the State Department. But they fought them in court and never even did submit the records to the Senate, who has full subpoena power. Like they should have been able to get everything that they requested, but the State Department denied them, which in and of itself tells you right there that what are you hiding? Like if there's nothing to hide and everything was fine, then why can't we look through all the records of who voted and whether or not they have social security numbers and driver's license numbers? Are they legal citizens? They just fought us at every turn. So unfortunately today we still have no real answers. From the Senate, from the legislative branch's side, but we certainly have the answers on the ground that we found, and we know what the issue is, and the fix in our mind is completely local. We've got to get people educated on the Constitution. I love the biblical citizenship class from Patriot Academy. I started hosting those. Karen and I were doing Constitution classes together for a while, and then I started doing biblical citizenship on my own, and she started doing Constitution Alive. I think in about a year's time, I've put maybe 500 people through the biblical citizenship course. And that's in my mind, without a doubt, where the fix is. When the churches in America will get involved and start doing their duty of talking about the role that the Christians are supposed to have in government, which is completely biblical, that can be and will be the game changer. So I'm very passionate about biblical citizenship, getting churches to host those classes. I've had a legislator in Pennsylvania actually become a Constitution coach and host a class at her church last winter. She put a couple hundred people through it. I've got 3 legislators on my current class right now taking the course. 2 have already said they want to be coaches. They will be happy to host classes. And that's going to be I believe that's going to be the game changer in Pennsylvania.
Well, I think it's a game changer across the country, I think. Now, when you first got involved, there was how many, like 1,000 coaches?
There was about 1,000, maybe 1,500 Constitution coaches when I signed up to be a Constitution coach. And they just crossed over 25,000 coaches just last week.
I was trying to tee that up. You just went ahead and hit it anyway.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm not the host of the show. You are. You're the one that you're in control.
I'm just a guest. If I'm talking too much, just shut me up. I'm good.
No. If you're a guest, you should be talking. Why don't you put that website back up there, Tom, if you can? That was kind of nice there. Go ahead and scroll through this a little bit, Tom, and then Toni, why don't you just kind of tell people if people want to become coaches, this is where they would go, right?
Yep. constitutioncoach.com. There's 3 different levels of participation. You can sign up for free to be a coach and get access to everything that you need to get started. The videos that are part of the class, you'll be able to stream those from anywhere, whether you do a Zoom class or in person. And then there's some other options if you want to get discounts on products or get a little bit more involved, but it's super, super simple. I mean, Karen and I both knew absolutely nothing when we started these courses. I even thought them calling us a coach was generous.
Scroll back down a little bit, Tom, there, and stop where it says these 3 options here. Find a class. Stop right there. Find a class, become a coach, or FAQs. These 2 on the left here, those are the ones where you'd start. So you can find a class that somebody's teaching in your area, and then and then you would find that there. And then of course the other one was become a coach. Now and on coach, you have 3 different levels. You can just be a coach. I say just be a coach, or you could pay to be a coach. I think, is that right?
Yep. So the middle of the road, which a lot of people that get involved and decide they want to do this a little more long term, it's super affordable. It's only $97 a year.
There you go, right there.
There it is. $97 a year. You get a big package of product that's going to help you in your journey with workbooks and other offerings from Patriot Academy. Just has a library of resources to help us re-educate an entire generation. So you start getting some of that stuff there. And then you also get discounts on things in the store, Patriot Academy, to help you reimburse for your expenses along the way, should you have any. When you have in-person classes, sometimes people do goodies and food, or if you have to pay for a venue, it'll just help reimburse that. And then if you're like me and like I am in this for the long haul, you can become a lifetime coach. $9.97. You never have to pay again. Best investment I think that I ever made. You get this massive box of stuff from Patriot Academy, and you're basically have access to everything forever. So, but most people can't take that plunge. Just start for free and do something.
Right. Yeah. Well, if people want to know, I've got a little secret for everybody here. Toni knows this because she saw me on the call on Thursday. You did see me there, right? That little small little box with the. You saw me, didn't you?
I did. I
See,
saw your
I saw
name
you
for
too.
sure. Yep.
I am a certified coach, so I took the plunge on that. And so we're going to get things started here in Wisconsin. I think there are some things started in Wisconsin, but southeast Wisconsin area, Milwaukee, that's me. I'm in. I'm in.
That's awesome.
Toni, I hate to say it, but Scarlett's the one that got me signed up, not you. So
That's okay.
it's
I love
okay.
Scarlett. Scarlett is, I remember her again in the
Yeah.
fall of 2020. I remember them saying, "This is our super coach, Scarlett." I remember thinking, wow. And like, just now even getting to work with her is surreal for me.
Yeah. So she's a fireball.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
yeah. So yeah, I talked to her and and it's, we like to think that things happen by, we're going to put our elbow grease in there. We're just going to, bang the, kick the door down and get my opportunities. That's not the way it usually works. It's relationships. You meet somebody, they meet somebody, they connect you. That's the way it works just about everywhere. And so we're having this interview now because my friend went to Nashville at Flashpoint, met Scarlett, and then I interviewed Scarlett last week, and then she said, "Well, I've got this fireball named Toni," and she made the connection for us. So it's like that's what it sounds like. I mean, it's all these things are grassroots; they come from the bottom up. And can you give me a couple of examples of people that you had in your coach classes, whatever presentations that have gone on to take the plunge themselves, or maybe even gone into politics themselves?
Oh my god, it's endless. That's the most encouraging part. It is absolutely endless. There's one gentleman that was part of one of our first classes in early 2021 who worked for Allegheny County. He took the class. They wanted to force the jab. He had enough courage and knowledge that he stood up against it. Unfortunately, he got fired, but he's in the middle of a lawsuit right now with Allegheny County. He ran for school board, did not get elected the first time, ran again. And the second time, he's in this past May primary, he got the most votes of anybody else in the primary, and he's on the ballot in November. So he may very well get on the school board. I have another lady that worked closely with me in Audit the Vote. She took our classes, signed up to be a coach, has hosted classes. She ran for vice chair of the GOP in her local county. So things like that. My most recent class, my biblical citizenship class, there's a guy that was so inspired. He took it the last time I offered it, got so inspired to run for office, did a write-in campaign for his city council in the May primary, and is on the ballot in November. Just signed up to be a coach, and he's working with his county GOP and his church to get biblical citizenship off the ground. So I mean, I could talk, there's endless stories. I could talk for days about that. That's why this is the fix, because it gets people come into these classes so despondent, and they see the state of the country and everything that's going on, and they're like, what the heck can we do? Is it over? And they get encouraged and uplifted, realize they're not alone, and they want to get involved, and that's how we fix it.
So I don't know, Toni. I didn't give you education on how to use Restream, but Scarlett's in the chat right now.
I see her. Hi, lady.
See there, she's in there. I invited her to join us, and we got like 15 minutes left or something. I said, "Do you want to join us? I mean, let's have a party here."
Please do. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that girl.
yeah. So let's send her a link or something here and get her in here if she wants to. I mean, I obviously, I'm not gonna. Not all of us are ready for prime time. She says, "Love to." Oh, no, you love Toni. Oh,
No.
yeah. So how about joining us, huh? Oh, well,
So
if she
then,
comes
do
in.
you want me to tell you how I ended up with Patriot Academy, like actually working for them? Because that's kind of a good
Oh,
story too.
I am such a dude. What a bad interviewer I am. And not asking you about your current job. Other than a personal counsel to President Trump, what do you do? What do you do for Patriot Academy?
So in February of 2022, we get through the November midterms. We really thought in Pennsylvania that Senator Mastriano was going to become governor, and he was going to be a game changer in the State Department and really shake things up and start rooting out our own Pennsylvania swamp. And when that didn't happen, people in Pennsylvania were very dejected. I was one of them, very just what are we supposed to do now? And just through a lot of prayer and just kept going hosting classes. This is how I believe God moves is Rick Green, who is again another hero of mine, and surreal that I get to even work with him and for him. He called me during one of my biblical citizenship classes. I had a 512 number come up on my cell phone. I don't answer numbers I don't know. I just let it go to voicemail. Text comes through and says, "Hey Toni, it's Rick Green, just checking in on you. Let me know when you have some time to chat." I was like, am I in
Hello.
trouble? Yeah, that was my first thought. Am I in trouble? Oh dear God.
Oh goodness.
So I called him right away, and that was my first question. Am I in trouble? He's like, "Oh, no, no, no." And we had a great conversation, and that just started the process of him basically saying, will you work for me? Will you be the Northeast ambassador director? Help me, get this coach program. Just help me grow the coach program. And eventually I said, yeah. And so as of April 1st, he brought me on staff as their Northeast regional director and ambassador for the Constitution Coach Program. And I'm so honored. It's, again, surreal. My life is surreal because so many people that I just looked up to for so long, I'm getting to work alongside, and it's amazing. God is
I
so
think
good.
I think Tony, I think you need to get a bumper sticker that says normal is just a setting on my dryer.
I love
I see Mike, we're putting some questions or things up here on from the chat. What's Ray saying? In baseball umpires can see why don't judges in America not want to see the votes? We depend on them to call balls and strikes, and umpire doesn't ask for the testimony of the batter, or well, I guess I got to cut off there. Or the pitcher, do they? I think that's the next part there. So that's just basically a statement. Is there a question in there? I mean, do you see any questions in there? Oh, put up Christine's comment there. That's a good one, I think. And you're going to be able to answer this, Toni.
Mm-hmm. How do we get our people educated in all of this? Well, you start by becoming a coach.
Gee,
And
if only there was a coach in this area right now that they could talk with. Wait a minute, that's me.
you start using whatever your current network is to host a class and get people educated, whether it's family, friends, social media, your church. Just set a date and start a class. You can do it all on Zoom. You can do it in person. There's tons of options. You figure out what's going to work best for you, and you set a date, and then you start telling people about it. That's where you start.
Well, now another cat that's going to get out of the bag here is that I have asked if I can teach this class in my Sunday school. So we're going to try. We're going to do
Perfect.
it. See
And
there?
if pastors give you any pushback, you just say to them, well, because they don't want to do politics in the church, you say, well, so show me what part of the Bible do you not, or what part of your life do you not apply the Bible to then? Or do you pick and choose like what part of life that you apply the scriptures to? And that'll just get them kind of like, no. Well, then why would this be any different? Why do you think that the Bible doesn't apply to how our government should be set up? That's all this is civics. It's not political party. It's not partisan. It's not going to push the parties, but it's just going to educate the church. What's your role as a person on earth when it comes to government? What does God have to say about that? That's all
And
this is going to do.
yeah, Scarlett's giving us the information, the 411 on becoming a coach. We've already, Scarlett, what you don't know is we put the website up too. But anyway, though, this is just a free for all. There's no structure to this whole thing, Toni. We're just making this stuff up as we go here. So,
Oh,
and I already got one
Christine,
person. I got
I was gonna,
Carrie. Carrie wants to be a coach, or
yep,
wants to be. She's going to come to class. So I'm going to light the fire. I didn't even try and find out the state of Wisconsin as far as this goes. I'm sure somebody in this state, in this area, has got something. So I didn't even look. So don't despise the days of new beginnings. Gee, you would know that, wouldn't you, Toni?
just a little.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah, there. So, well, we got about 7 minutes. I always try to carve out about an hour here. And so I'm
Scarlett
just
doesn't want to join us,
well, I offered. I
but she didn't
offered.
jump on it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I got the link out there. Well, if she wants to, she wants to. I mean, was it right now? It's like 7:50 out there. So out
Oh
in California.
gosh.
Yeah,
Oh, Scarlett, how
it's
are you up?
I know. So
I keep
yeah,
forgetting about the time. Oh,
yeah. And then we got this one here. Ray, what do you mean by this comment? So put it up there. It's all about the offering plate. What do you mean by that, sir?
I think what he means when a church, yeah, I think what he's saying is, and correct, you can correct me, Ray, if I'm wrong, but when a church doesn't want to do biblical citizenship, they are concerned that they're going to turn off a portion of the congregation and it will affect their tithes. Also, if they lose their 501, they're concerned about losing their 501c3 status, which is completely bogus. This was a law passed in the 60s that allowed churches are tax exempt anyway. They don't have to pay taxes ever. But by accepting this 501c3 status from the government, it allowed people that donate to them to write off their donations on their taxes. And that's what they don't want to lose, is they're afraid then that if they go get political, that they could lose that 501c3 status. And if people can't write off their donations, maybe they won't donate as much. And so that's the real hesitation. It's a money thing. I think, Ray, that's what you're talking about. And I've seen it. I get it. I know. But if the church can't tell, if pastors can't tell that now is the time to stand up, it's now or never. Like, okay, if you believe that God is sovereign and he supplies all our needs according to his riches and glory, which is what the Bible says, then he's going to supply your needs as a church when you speak the truth into the culture. Why in the world would you shy? Where's your faith if you're not willing to go there? But
Yeah, and that whole 501c3 thing is just, it's so taken out of context. I mean,
mm-hmm.
you are right, and I'm pretty sure that the folks here, I'm pretty sure Rick Green and David Barton and others would have some things to say about that too.
Well, what I just spit out, I learned from them. So
See there. Now you were kind of like a constitutional neophyte at the beginning. Where do you think you're at now? I mean, how far have you come? Do you think you're getting to a point where you can stand toe to toe with somebody fighting on the other side?
I hope so, but I'm certainly no expert. I'm no guru. I just sit at the feet of Rick Green and listen and learn. And I study a lot. I read a lot. I'm trying to study and learn about the founding fathers. I'm reading a book right now about Patrick Henry. I've read a book about Benjamin Rush. I'm trying to get through some biographies so I can understand history better. But I mean, I certainly know more than I did 3 years ago, but I wouldn't by any stretch call myself an expert. There's always more to learn, always. And I think that's the thing too that our society has forgotten, is if you develop a love for learning, you don't get to this closed-minded people on the side of COVID that just science, science, science. It's like, well, wait a minute, do you even know what science is? Like, science is questioning. You question everything. If you're not willing to question stuff, then you just threw science out the window.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the chats here. I've got two people that want to join the class and one that wants to be a certified coach. So I think I better get my act together here. So,
Set a date, Dave. Set a date and start telling people about it.
how did your first class go?
My first class was less than 30 people, and we were just wide-eyed and blown away by how much we were learning. I mean, it went great. It was just none of us knew anything, including me and Karen, and we were still learning with everybody, and we were just open and honest about that. Like, look, we're not gurus. If you ask us something we don't know, we'll just tell you we don't know, and we'll get the answer for you as best we can and have it next week. So it was a pretty simple start. Keep in mind, this was also, we were hosting our first class when the 2020 election was happening. So like all the eyes were on the election. Rick Green was doing these front porch lives. He was breaking things down about what constitutional paths do we have to rectify the situation? Is Trump going to end up in the White House? Biden, what do you think? I mean, the learning curve was just exponential. The Electoral College, that whole process. I mean, I had no idea. I knew you vote the first Tuesday in November for a president, and then sometime at the end of January, there's this pomp and circumstance ceremony and somebody gets inaugurated. I had no idea what happened in between. And so we were just learning at that time. It was just a crash course of us learning about what happens in between. What are the measures within the Constitution that have been put there to keep us from getting to where we are today, which is, I believe, with an illegitimate president. There were checks and balances. It's just the swamp, in my opinion, is too big and too deep, and those checks and balances didn't shake out. But that's why we got to get people to know what they are and stop calling insurrectionists on January 6th an insurrection with over millions of people that were not armed attempted to start an insurrection. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
So if you're into QR codes, there's a couple of them on the screen here. And we decided to put your headshot there to advertise Patriot Academy, if that's okay. We didn't get your permission from your PR team, but we just did it anyway.
I think that's okay.
Who is your PR team? Is it you?
Scarlett, I think.
Oh, Scarlett's your PR. Well, maybe I can get her on my team too. What the heck? So your basic thing, we got about a minute here. We could bleed over. I don't care. There's no set time, man. But it if you want to become a coach, I think that's where you're saying that's the ground level. Just get in there, but you can actually participate in classes. I'm going to do my best to get that class. Now, for those that are watching, I do this online Saturdays and Tuesdays. I do live stream the Sundays, but maybe I may not be able to get the Sundays done, but I can always do this on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'll make it work. And of course, we can always get a schedule a place to meet in person, do all the stuff, the things there. Um, so, what would you tell somebody who wants to get involved, but they don't know at what level to get involved? I'm assuming you're going to say do the free thing first, but
Oh
or at
yeah.
least get the classes. But if there's one class, if they were to go to the website, there's a class they could take. Which one do you think you should tell them to take?
I mean, if they're watching this, they're probably a faith-filled Christian, I would think. So I would point them more towards biblical citizenship. The biblical citizenship course does, in some of the later videos, weave in Constitution Alive very, very well. So you're going to get, there it is, there's the thumb drive. You're going to get what a lot of what is in Constitution Alive, you're going to get in biblical citizenship. So if you're a very faith-filled person, Christian, I would do that. For people, there's probably not many watching. What's the title of your show then? God's News in the News. Probably not many people watching this that are not Christians. I would say Constitution Alive, just so you can get the basics on the Constitution and our founding fathers. But everyone on here should probably be doing biblical citizenship, or at least that's what they might be more interested in.
Okay, there it is. We've got some ideas here. So, um, unless I'm going to check the chat here, I don't think any other questions. If anybody's got any other questions for Toni, that now would be the time to ask. If you got a question here, we're gonna. If I don't see any questions, we'll go ahead and close this thing down. But this has been fascinating. And I knew it was going to be good after I heard you on Thursday at the conference call. Then I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be fantastic. And it has turned out we've had some glitches along the way. Like I said, I don't want to blame Satan for trying to keep things from going, but we fought through it all. We got there. Anything worth doing is worth the struggle there. So, but I'm happy that this all thing happened, and I'm happy for you, Toni. Let's stay in touch. I don't see any of the comments down there. I'm going to throw up the QR code there. So these are the places you need to go. Take a picture of it, throw it up there, and then you'll be able to get information about these whole things. Oh, that's the one I wanted to put up. I want to put up that one there too. So, any last comments, Toni?
I would just say, if you feel so led to donate to Patriot Academy, they are building a campus in Texas where they're going to basically educate the next generation on the original intent of our Constitution, constitutional defense. They do leadership academies, mock legislative sessions. They bring in young kids and start talking to them about getting into government, but becoming a statesman, not a politician, and actually making a difference. And if you feel led to donate to them, please do that. You can sponsor a brick on the campus, get your name on it, whatever it is that you want. There's that program for $2,400 donation. You can sponsor a brick for Patriot Academy, but really anything that you can do to help support the cause. To my knowledge, there's other companies out there that I've heard of that are doing education, but nobody does it like Patriot Academy. I mean, Rick Green is so entertaining. He makes it so fun, so real, and so easy to ingest and retain. And nobody else, in my opinion, is doing it like that. So if you've got the finances and wherewithal, please go to Patriot Academy and donate.
There it is. And I am happy to donate as well. So now, folks, generally, and thank you, Toni, for joining us here. We're happy. Let's not make this the last time. Let's do this again sometime.
For sure. Me and Scarlett need to come on together. That would
Hey,
be fun.
I got room for a lot. Look at the screen. I can put faces all over the place here. So if we want to have if you want to team up on me, team up against me, what the heck? So I mean, as I tell people, if you want to like, share, and subscribe to all these things, support Patriot Academy. We're not building our kingdom; we're building His kingdom. And by the way, those of you that think that if we support Patriot Academy and we want Christians to get involved, that somehow we're building a theocracy, that I could drop kick and punt that thing out without going to Patriot Academy. But get involved. I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing I would suggest you do is to get Eric Metaxas' last book, Letter to the American Church. Unbelievable. And then, of course, if you want to dig in deeper, his 600 small book about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Those are, in my mind, if you want to be a patriot and you want to be a Christian that's involved in making sure you change the world, two of the best resources you're ever going to invest in. You're not going to waste money there. So that public, maybe Eric can come on here and say thank you for that. But think big, and definitely. Now, you may not get to meet President Trump. You may not get to meet these people, but you can get involved and you can get something done. And that's what I'm encouraging you all to do. I took the plunge. I'm willing to work. I'm going to do my part to make sure that the next election doesn't turn out like the last couple elections. And Toni, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you get that swamp in Pennsylvania cleaned up.
We're
Okay.
working hard.
Yeah, and make sure that flag behind you don't tread on me. There you go there. All right. Would you mind closing us out in prayer?
Not at all. Father God, we come to you in the name of Jesus. We just thank and praise you for this nation, for everything that you've done to build it, and we ask for a hedge of protection over it. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, it says, if your people are humbled and turn from their sins, that the nation will be restored. And we just are believing and receiving right now for a restoration of that, Father. And we ask that your prayers are all over this network, God's News in the News, that you will prosper it, that you will give it a bigger voice so that more people can be led to Jesus and follow the path that you have for them in this season of life. We pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen. And Toni, just stick around a little bit after we close the live stream. I want to have a couple things I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
But for everybody else, usually we have a Google Meet. You guys can still do the Google Meet. You know what the link is, and there it is down there. And we can meet for a little bit. But I just want to let you know, get involved. But thank you. Thank you for joining us once again on another edition of God's News in the News, current events, and biblical perspective. We'll see you next time.